18th century brought the domination of French cuisine, and the European cookbooks were filled with the recipes à la française. Manual banquets menus were made of dishes derived from different national and regional cuisines. At that time, in foreign language cookbooks, manuscripts and printed books, Old Polish dishes enjoyed great popularity. Among the many dishes considered as Polish, in the collection of recipes throughout Europe, one dish was the most popular. It was pike in a Polish style, described in dozens of various recipes. By tracking the history of the dish, we can deliberate the phenomenon of its popularity and to consider how, from the external perspective, Polish cuisine was perceived and what was associated with Polishness and why it was a pike. This presentation will concern the issue of popularity of pike in a Polish style and its textual history in printed sources from the 16th and 17th century, based mainly on German sources. Then we will read some recipes and try to focus on the taste of that dish and its evolution. And at the end, we will consider some meanings and functions of ascribed to the pike in a Polish style. Polish pike is a dish known in foreign culinary literature for a few centuries before printing the very first Polish cookbook. This dish appeared first in 15th century in Czech and German manuscripts. Then we see it in 16th century also in those countries, but then in Italy, in France. Then in the 17th century, we see it in Scandinavia and British Isles. Recipes for pike in Polish style and other Polish dishes appeared most often in German culinary literature from this time, which will be the basis of further analysis today. The types of literature in which Polish pike appeared are varied. There are cookbooks, but there are also household manuals addressed for the landowners. There are also calendars, so kind of very popular sources. Let's have a look at the examples of the titles of these recipes. So recipes for Polish pike are called pike cooked yellow in Polish style, pike in Polish sauce, how to cook a pike in a Polish style, or pike in a Polish soup. So the titles are quite similar. These recipes labeled as Polish should be considered as an attempt of interpretation of culinary associations and images of cuisine of Polish elite, and it does not mean that the dish is derived from the Polish cuisine. In the analyzed collection of German culinary texts from second half of 16th century and from the 17th century, there are as many as 87 recipes for dishes in Polish style. 55 of them concern fish dishes and 42 one exact dish, the pike in a Polish style. Other species of fishes are not so popular as pike, but also prepared in a Polish style. This is also trout, burbot, carp, perch, salmon, plaice, European sturgeon. On the other hand, among the meat recipes in Polish style, there is definitely no one so popular as pike. But the most common are capon in Polish style. They are mentioned 7 times. There are slightly less references to venison, goose, chicken, and beef tongue, and just singular references to mutton, veal, lamb, wild boar, or pheasant. Cookbooks in which these recipes are found were produced in the court and patrician circles and certainly showed a collection of recipes appropriate for the wealthy and high-born. Pike in a Polish style occupied in this cuisine, in the sources, a place among them, a certain place. In some cases, the recipes for Polish pike are even mentioned as the very first recipe in the whole fish chapter. In the hierarchical society in which it was natural to organize everything from the supreme to the lowest, such an insignificant matter as the context of as the list of the recipes became significant. However, at the end of the 17th century, recipes for Polish dishes appeared in the text addressed to a wider audience, in cookbooks not intended only for the court administrators, but also chefs and housekeepers and even innkeepers. Polish pike is mentioned in German-Polish phrasebook by Nicolaus Volkmar, printed in 1612, and in a series of Polish recipes appear also in untypical culinary guide called Stockholmisch Koch from 17th century, written in the form of dialogue. It is a dialogue between Marta and Maria, where Marta is an experienced cook and Maria is just a beginner. So the association with the evangelical characters are here crucial. And the recipes in Polish style are finally to be found in the German calendars from the end of the 17th century. Placing this kind of recipes in calendars I find extremely interesting, as it proves the scale of the reception of this recipe for Polish pike and other Polish dishes, and its circulation among the nobility, the landowners, then the bourgeois, but also townspeople. What's more interesting, Polish dishes were the most popular foreign recipes in those German calendars. They were more popular than the French ones or the English ones. The phenomenon of popularity of pike in a Polish style should be read in the broader context related to general interest of recipes from foreign cuisines as a manifestation of the cosmopolitanism in the courts in early modern Europe. Let's pretend that this cook, this is Ulrich, that this cook is preparing right now the pike in a Polish style. While in Küchenmeisterei, the first printed cookbook, the first printed German cookbook from 1490, there is only one recipe in which headline foreign way of preparing food is indicated. Already in 1691, in a cookbook published by Nuremberg patrician women, 56 recipes for dishes of different European cuisine was collected. A few years later, in cookbook by Maria Schellhammer, there were as many as 77 different recipes from nations and regions. This interest in foreign flavors was a sign of familiarity with the courtly circles and the world of maithi and diplomats. And for the chefs, the master chefs, it was expression of experience and proficiency in the preparation of dishes from European courtly cuisines. The knowledge of their preparation was no longer confined to the chefs who cooked in European courts, but with the spread of the printed word, it was reaching out to small gentry and bourgeois households who eagerly imitated the elite cuisine. Since medieval times, the menu of the rich Baroque cuisine described in German cookery books was quite similar, and until the middle of 17th century, there is a set of similar classic recipes for pike, which are elements of the German, but also cosmopolitan cuisine. There are pike in a yellow, pike yellow with lemons, pike blue in a red sauce, pike with capers, pike with horseradish and almonds, then Polish, Czech, or Hungarian-style pike, Stuffed pike or pike baked in a pretzel shape. Oh. Now let's have a closer, well, let's have a closer look on the taste of the Polish pike. Here we have the very first printed recipe for Polish pike from German sources. To prepare fish in Polish style, you have to use parsley, cook it until it becomes tender, then prepared kind of puree from the cooked parsley, diluted it with wine, make it yellow by addition of saffron or other spices, then add some pounded spices, which are spices in general, and then cook once again. Then you have to prepare the fish. It should be cooked before and added to the sauce, then boil once again. In this early modern recipes, the fish and the sauce is boiled and boiled again, so the taste could be very concentrate. But there is also one very interesting point. If you don't have parsley, you can use onion. In the vast majority of the recipes for Polish pike, pike is cooked in onion-based sauce, has a spicy flavor, it's sweet and sour at the same time, with a clear dominance of saffron, which is responsible for distinctive yellow color of the sauce. Vegetables that were basis of the sauce were boiled twice in water to get rid of any cold and moisture elements, according to the Galenic dietary rules mentioned by Professor Dumanowski. Spices were meant to warm up the cold elements contained in the fish to achieve the balance of its opposite features. The same function, I mean warming up, had addition of vinegar and wine, but also the process of boiling itself. Then have a look on the next recipe for pike in a Polish sauce. That one is from the master chef from the Saxonian court, Johann Deckhardt. He prepared pike in a Polish sauce using parsley, apples, and a good part of onions. Prepared once again this vegetable puree, adding some wine into it, also vinegar, and then spice it with ginger, pepper, saffron. At the end, he adds some sugar and honey and pour more vinegar. So all these recipes are kind of similar. Polish dishes in German cookbooks were not considered as foreign or strange, but they were aesthetically similar to other recipes still rooted in the Renaissance and Baroque culinary style. Thanks to the comments in the calendars, we know that a large pike in a Polish sauce made of onions, apples, bread and wine, seasoned with pepper, saffron, sugar, was considered as delicate and festive dish, willingly served at weddings, but also at the guest visits. This very spicy and intensive taste of Polish dishes was described by foreign travelers visiting Poland as characteristic for Polish food, and for some travelers even inedible, especially for the French ones. In the end of the 17th century and forward, the sweet and spicy taste was already old-fashioned. In the style was natural, delicate, elegant taste of food very much in a French style. As it turns out, this association of spicy Polish food lasted for a long time. Also in the Polish cookery book, Compendium Ferculorum, written by a nobleman, Stanisław Czerniecki, in 1682, we find recipes which taste is kind of similar to this international images about pike in a Polish style. But there is no recipe for Polish pike in this cookbook. We found a recipe for salmon, which is the best fish in Poland, as Master Chef Czerniecki said. But he stated also that in the same way as salmon, you can prepare pike. What's more striking, in his cookbook, onion sauce was one of the main ways of making thick sauces for fishes. So the recipes for pike in a Polish style form kind of coherent picture of the food ascribed to Poles or imagined as preferred by Poles. They express commitment to this long duration of medieval and Renaissance tastes. They also express resistance to this new idea of French delicate cuisine and refinement of flavors and the natural taste of foods. And they express luxury, seen as access to expensive exotic products like spices, sugar, raisins, or citrus fruits. In the face of significant changes in culinary world caused by new French concept of good taste, in some German cookbooks we see the acceptance for the new French influences. And this is very striking that in these German cookbooks, which appreciated new French cuisine and in which we find a lot of dishes à la française, there is no place for pike in a Polish style. There is not even one recipe for pike in a Polish style in these cookbooks, which appreciate the modern taste. In the 18th century, thanks to the King Stanisław Leszczyński, father-in-law of Louis XV, pike in a Polish style, a little bit old-fashioned, as we said, gained a new taste and a new image. A dish called pike à la Stanislas, described in 18th century French cookbooks, for example by Massialo, was a dish completely different from the medieval pike cooked in a spicy, heavy sauce. But it was delicate, modern food, cooked with thyme, basil, so the local herbs, bay leaf, parsley, chopped onion, spiced only by cloves and pepper, served with a butter sauce with anchois. So in the 18th century, thanks to the King Stanislas, pike in a Polish style once again become fashionable dish, worthy of serving in the aristocratic mansions and described in the culinary texts.